Okay, today we are going to focus on the problem of fiscal policy, and that main problem that we're going to focus on is what we call the crowding out process. And so I have jotted down a list of how that process works in our economy. And so if we start with number one, the whole crowding out process and problem begins when our government spends too much money and ends up with a budget deficit. And this budget deficit is going to lead to our government having to borrow money. Okay, so budget deficits mean that our government doesn't have enough money, so they have to go out and borrow. Okay, now that increase, if you look at step two, that increase in government borrowing is going to cause the demand in the loanable funds market to increase because our government is borrowing money. Remember, the loanable funds graph represents how much borrowing and how much savings is taking place in an economy. So in the loanable funds graph, I am going to shift the demand curve to the right. And this indicates that the deficit forced our government to borrow. That borrowing is going to show up on the loanable funds graph. And you can see in the graph, anytime the demand for borrowing is increasing, it's going to cause the interest rate in the economy to go up as well. And so in step two, that's what we're talking about. The increase in government borrowing is going to increase the loanable funds, the demand for loanable funds, which takes us to step three. We can see on our graph then that there's an increase in the interest rate. And whenever interest rates increase, this is going to discourage businesses from wanting to borrow money. Okay, businesses need to borrow if they're going to spend on investment. When rates are high, those rates are less attractive to businesses, and so they borrow and then spend less on investment. Okay? And our fourth and final step is really where the problem lies. When businesses are not spending money on investment because interest rates are too high, then that means that our economy is not going to grow at the rate that we want it to grow. Because remember, economic growth is measured by an increase in land, labor, capital. Well, in this scenario, when businesses are spending less on investment, we're going to end up with less capital in our economy, which is then going to decrease the growth rate that our economy is experiencing. Okay? So again, this is the problem of fiscal policy, is that when the government is forced to borrow money, we say that it crowds out business investment and it slows down our economy's growth, which obviously is a negative thing.